Hello and welcome to episode 4 of TG Campbell in Conversation with. I'm TG Campbell, author of the Bullshit Society crime fiction books, and I'm joined here today by KD Sherrinford. Could you give us an introduction about yourself, please?
Hello, everybody. Great to be here with you all today. Thank you very much, TJ, for inviting me. I'm KD Sherrinford from the UK's File Coast. I guess I'm best known for my Sherlock Holmes and Irene Adler mysteries.
Yeah, we actually met at the Books on the Beach event, didn't we, in 2024? You were on a table across me. I remember when I was looking at the authors who attended and looking at the books and go, oh, I need to get one of these books. You know, it was one of those books that stood out for me that I thought was it's a bit different. And I thought, yeah, I need to get a copy of this. So that was the first time we met, wasn't it? Back in
It was. I remember it very well, and I felt the same. Thought, oh, was someone writing in my era, which is a
yeah,
first.
yeah.
So it was
Crime fiction,
lovely.
first of all. It was like crime fiction and the same era. Quick.
I know we swapped books, didn't we? It was amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I need to read more of your series. I really enjoyed the first one that you recommended. So
Oh yeah, same. Yeah. So obviously I read your first book of series. I'm not going to mention the title yet because we're going to go into that in a minute. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed how it was written and the characterization and everything. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. So hence why you're here. So let's sort of go into the chat. So I like to ask this question of all authors that I get on because I just think it's fascinating how different people approach the process. So what is your writing process? Do you plot? Are you a bit more pantser, or you have character profiles, that sort of thing?
I am primarily a pantser writer. Although having said that, I did have to do a fair bit of outlining for the two novels, my debut novel, Song for Someone, which is this one here, and
Yeah, it's the one I read. Yeah.
the Whistle of Revenge, which is the latest one in the series. Um, but what I try and let the characters develop as they're going along.
Mm.
I have an idea set in my mind, and I let them take them where I feel they want to go. And that's how I've always written, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people do outlining, don't they? But
Yeah.
what's your take on that? Are you a pantser or
I do an outline, I do a plan, and then, like you
yeah,
say, I start writing it, and then the characters have other ideas. So it's like they decide. Normally, what happens is because obviously my series has a group of people, they have a meeting, and some people go, "Have you thought of this?" And I'm like, "No," but I now have to go and research that. So yeah, that what normally happens. But I mean, I've got so much going on that I have to plan it. I can't. I have tried to do the just write it method, but I just can't
yeah?
keep it in my head, and it's
Well, whichever way you do it, it's very well done. You can
oh,
tell
thank
from
you.
reading your books how well researched and well put together they are. I was very impressed with that.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
I, yeah, and I do have beta readers and art readers. Some of them have been with me from the beginning. So they're quite familiar with my writing style, my character plot
Mm,
development, which I think is quite important when you're writing a series.
yes.
I'm very lucky to have them. They're a wonderful bunch. So I'll give them a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, it's also very important to have beta readers that you know are going to
Yes.
be 100 honest with you. And
Oh
actually,
yes.
when it's not
Oh yeah.
working, they
Yeah.
go, this is not great, you know. So
Yeah.
otherwise, you don't, it's nice to have something, oh, this is brilliant, I love it. But sometimes you think, oh, that's great. But in this process, part of this, the whole thing, that's not necessarily
Yeah.
helpful.
Well,
Like what?
it's not realistic, is it? Everyone says, "Oh yeah, your books are wonderful." Nobody's perfect, are they? So you just have to keep trying. And I've got a wonderful friend, a development editor, Tony, who's actually from Hull,
Okay, well, yeah.
who helped me a great deal with The Whistle of Revenge, which is very difficult to write. I wish
Mm.
she'd been here when I'd written the first two books, Song for Someone and Christmas at the Stories.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because you always think, don't you, oh, maybe you could have done that a little bit better. But you know, the books don't speak for themselves. They've done very well, so I'm
Yeah.
happy with that. But you know, I think as a writer, you're always looking at ways to improve, aren't you, and do something a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. You've always got to be, you're always learning, like you're always tweaking, you're
Yeah,
always like finding a new way
exactly.
of doing that. And that's the best way to approach it, really, is that you can never know
Yeah.
everything. And it's exciting to find these new, and it's great to talk to our authors to see how they do things. You think, I've never thought of that, of doing it that way. So
No,
that's what,
exactly. You pick up some wonderful ideas, don't you, from just talking to people on Facebook and
yeah.
you know, as going to book signings like we did and chatting
Mm,
to different people. And it's quite eye opening, really. So it
yeah.
can be a bit of a seclusive business, can't it? Writing, you sat in your office from 9 till 5, whatever, and
Yeah.
you don't really see anybody. So,
It is,
so
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first people I interviewed this was a streamer, and I also often say to him that's quite similar. Is like he just sat in a stream room, and is even though you talk to people and everything, you are ultimately you just sat there on your own. So it's nice to connect to
Yeah.
people who like minded and everything, and
Yeah, especially when they're writing a similar genre. That's just
yeah.
wonderful. So,
So how long do you
yeah.
think roughly it takes you to finish a book from the moment you sort of start outlining it to then
Oh,
like gets like ready to be
well,
published?
Song took me over 2 years, and I think
Mm,
that's probably because I was a debut author. I was new to everything,
yeah,
and of course, I made lots of mistakes. I had to change chapters around and get some feedback,
yeah,
which was very constructive, but it was pretty hard work.
mm,
So I would say about 2.5 years from me to start writing, outlining, doing the pantser writing,
yeah,
to finally being published. The next two books uh, took me about 3 months each
mm,
because they were novellos. And of course, I already had the main characters, so I just had to introduce new stories, new characters into that, which I really enjoyed. And in fact, I had the idea for the next two books while I was writing Song. For some reason, I wanted to write this Christmas story. I had this in my mind.
you've got to have a Christmas story. It's like one of those things you must
Yes,
have in a crime fiction series.
yeah, Christmas at the Sephora. So
Yeah,
it's more than a Christmas story. Of course,
mm,
it's a Sherlock Holmes mystery.
yeah.
It's done very well. It won first place at the Chanticleer International Book Awards last month for shorts and novellas, which I was absolutely thrilled with. And then Meet Me in Milan, which is this little book here. This is the third book in the series, and
Yeah.
another novella, which is lovely summer story, and again another mystery. I think what resonates that book so much with the readers is that Irene and Sherlock get to investigate a case together.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And of course, there's lots of twists and turns, and I really enjoyed writing that one as well. And I've got a bit of a soft spot for that one, I think. So.
So you say you're a pantser, so presumably you don't have a series Bible that you refer
No,
to for that.
no,
No.
no, no. I just try and think of an idea, uh, and then usually in my sleep, I might think of something, a eureka moment, and then you've got to get up, you've got to write it down because my memory is terrible. I forget. And as I say, the stories for the first three books quite came to me quite easily. The fourth one was a lot um, more difficult,
Mm,
more intricate, some very interesting characters in that. And it was also a follow up to Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles,
right. Yeah.
The Whistle of Revenge. That's the latest book, which came out earlier this year. And book five, I think, is going to be set in America.
Mm,
Two or three of them are set in Milan, Italy. Christmas at the Savoys is set in London and the Sussex Downs. So Irene and Sherlock will be going to America for book five.
ooh.
I've got a few ideas in my head. I've got notes, but I'm not quite sure on the main plot line yet. But it'll come to me. I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to wait for that eureka
Was
moment.
Agatha Christie said that sometimes when she went to sit down to sort of start doing her books, that she'd be worried that she wouldn't have any ideas, and suddenly it'd all suddenly come out like a sausage machine.
Yeah. And I think once you start writing, it's easier, isn't it? Once
Mm,
you start getting those words down on the page, things come to you more rapidly. Well, they do to me.
yes.
While you're just thinking of things, it is a lot more difficult. So what I tend to do is outline pages of notes. I might not use a lot of them, but they're there, and then I
Mm.
can use them and keep dipping in and out. And that's how I do it, basically. So,
Yeah, half the battle
probably a
sometimes
bit
just getting started,
self-editing.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know people outline, don't they? I think that must be great because you know how it's going to start, how it's going to end.
In theory.
I had no idea how my books were going to end when I started writing them. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So this is the question that I've asked everybody else who's been on this series so far, which I always find fascinating again, like what their answers are. So if you could have coffee with three people, living or dead, famous or not famous, who would you choose? Why would you choose them? And what would you talk about?
Well, I think we've just spoken about one of them, the Queen of Crime, Agatha Christie. I'd love to have a chat to her and just find out where she got all her ideas from, what her
Mm,
writing process was. That would be fascinating, wouldn't it? I'm a big fan. I mean, growing up, the mystery writers were fascinating to me, and Conan Doyle, Christie were two of my favourites. And I read the entire dual canon by age 13.
Yeah.
But going back to Agatha Christie, I even gave her a little cameo in Song for Someone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she has a conversation with Irene Adler, so I popped her into there. So yeah, so that's it basically.
That's one. So you need two more people.
Oh, sorry, you want two more?
Yeah, well, it's
Oh, the
three
topic.
people.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm in the book mode, aren't I? Well, I think the another one would have to be my musical idol Neil Sedaka. Don't laugh. I've been following him for 40, 50 years. Just amazing songwriter.
Yeah.
He's 85 now, no, 86. He's still going strong, bless him. So I keep thinking, while he's alive, I'm okay, because I'm quite a bit
Yeah.
younger than him. But I just love him. And I think probably the third one would be the actor and comedian Peter Cook. A big fan of Beyond
Yeah.
the Bridge and all that. I love that kind of comedy. And I just thought he was brilliant. I've read all these books and seen everything he's ever been in. Of course, he did a spoof Sherlock Holmes, didn't he, with Dudley Moore as Dr. Watson? One of the greatest film, but
Yeah.
it's quite funny. Quite funny.
That's
So,
a very interesting combination. It'd be interesting to see how they would all chat together.
yeah, that could you imagine having a dinner party or a coffee morning with all of them chatting to them? That would be just amazing, wouldn't it? So,
Yeah, and interestingly, you didn't mention Conan Doyle in that mix. I did think you might have mentioned.
maybe I don't know, I'm not so sure about him, but I think Agatha Christie out the two would probably have a better sense of humour. I just get that vibe from her.
Yeah,
And I think she was an amazing writer, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Out of the two, I think she's my
Very
favourite.
self-deprecating though, from what I can gather. She didn't.
Yes,
She was.
yes,
Yeah. Mary Westmacott. She always said that was her serious writing, and I mean, I
yeah,
did my dissertation on Agatha Christie, and it's a shame really that she didn't think that her mystery writing was as good or as literary as her other stuff. And it's like, well, it's brilliant in a different way. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's. Yeah, I love Agatha Christie. I mean, Conan Doyle I was more fascinated with his life away from his
yes,
writing when I was
yeah,
growing up. I found this book at the library about just his life, and I read that from cover to cover, and I just found it really interesting how he got involved in criminal cases, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, definitely Agatha
yeah. Well, they're
Christie
both
is.
prolific writers, aren't they? It's just it would be fascinating to have a chat to either of them, really, wouldn't it? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But there's so many people to choose from, isn't there? How to boil it down to three? It's difficult. So,
Yeah, so you're
so
going to be so you're going to be doing a reading for us today. So could you just tell us a little bit about the book you'll be reading from and your inspiration for it?
this is the book. I'm going to be reading from my debut novel, Song for Someone.
Mm-hmm.
The actual inspiration for this book started during a conversation with my daughter at a trip to the Sherlock Holmes Museum, the London Sherlock Holmes Museum in Baker Street in
Yeah.
2019. And as I said to you earlier, I read all the canon by the time I was 13.
Mm.
And my idol was Irene Adler, and I couldn't understand why she didn't appear in any further stories after A Scandal in Bohemia.
Mm.
And I waited for years for someone to write a pastiche about the brooding detective and the acclaimed contralto. The ones that did just sort of really skirted around the issue without exploring its depths and endless possibilities. So, encouraged by my daughter, I decided to have a go at writing my adaptation. So I did a little bit of outlining at the end of 2019. I remember it was just before COVID.
Mm.
Then in 2020, I started to write, and the rest is, well, history. So, but while I was doing that, I had these ideas for the other books as well. So yeah, to be honest with you, I wrote the book for myself.
Yeah.
Never dreamed in my wildest dream that people would actually want to buy it and read it. So I was just fascinated by that. And then, of course, we got some wonderful reviews in from the likes of Book Viral, Reader's Favourite, Literary Titan, the Historical Fiction Company, described it as an evocative masterpiece, which Dee Marlin thought unbelievable. So
Yeah.
I was so happy with that. And then, of course, we got to the finals last year at the Chatelaine for the Chanticleer International Book Awards, which was amazing. And then to go on further this year with Christmas at the Sephora's was just mad. And I actually went to the ceremony with my daughter. She flew in from Taiwan,
Yeah.
We went together, and I nearly fell off the chair when they called that name. I wasn't expecting to win, to be honest with you. You think you've got a bit of a squeak, don't you? And then you get there and you're sat amongst the great and the good, all these wonderful authors, and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? And that's just how it was. But it was a wonderful experience, and I'm so glad I went. So, but yeah, getting back to song, I'm so proud of this book, the love and passion, the research that's gone into it. Very proud of it. So it's one thing I'll take to my grave. I shall die a happy woman.
So here is the reading from that book.
This is chapter 2 from Song from Someone, again narrated by Charlotte Sapori, the daughter of Irene Adler. My mind often drifts back to the events leading up to my mother's death. The day she died remains indelibly imprinted on my memory. I still recall the silk print dress she wore on that ill-fated day. Our housemaid Stella found Mother collapsed in the drawing room and called for an ambulance. My mind was racing as I travelled with her to All Souls Hospital. I was sobbing and shaking uncontrollably as I held her hand in mine. The consultant said it had been a mild attack. He was hopeful she would fully recover. I was allowed to stay with my mother in a private room where she slept for some time. I was gently braiding her hair when she opened her beautiful violet eyes. Even in a hospital nightgown, she looked as beautiful as ever. Age had not yet withered her features, although she appeared a little paler than usual. Smiling at me, she squeezed my hand. "Charlotte, why don't you go home and get some rest?" "Mother, you are the one who needs a rest. You're always putting others first." "Well, if you won't go home, my darling girl, come and sit here with me for a moment. There are events in my past that you are not yet aware of, things that I need to tell you." She paused. "I don't want you to worry. Death does not exist to me. But please bear in mind the events that transpired were primarily to protect you and your brother. Always remember that." I squeezed her hand. She was starting to worry me. "It's all right. It was only a mild attack. The doctors said that with plenty of rest, there was no reason why you wouldn't make a full recovery." My mother sighed, gesturing to the locker beside the bed. She asked me to pass her bag. I handed it to her and watched as she unfastened the clasp and took out a silver key. "Well, Charlotte Grace, you are right, of course. I am still exhausted. I need to sleep right now. I want you to return to the house and have dinner with your Aunt Estelle. Please send her my heartfelt love. This is the key to my bedside cabinet. You'll find my journal there. When the time was right, your father and I planned to tell you and Nico the whole story. But, Charlotte, before you read it, pour yourself a glass of wine, sit back on my bed, and make yourself comfortable." I raised my eyebrows, looking at her curiously as she held my hand in hers. "I know you have questions, Charlotte. Your father told you to question everything and not take anything at face value. He gave you good advice. We raised you to have an open mind. Trust me, my darling girl, you will need it. Everything that you will want to know is in my journal. The madness that was my life began in the city of London in February 1893. The day my first husband, Godfrey Norton, was found brutally murdered. The nurse entered the room with a jug of fresh water and my mother's medication. Then the consultant arrived to check her pulse and heart rate. Finally, he turned to me, gently placing his hand on my shoulder. "Your mother needs to rest now, Miss Sapori. You may come back in the morning. We have your number at home. We'll call you if there's any change in her condition." Mother lay back on her pillow and sighed. "My dearest Charlotte, when you speak to your father, please tell him that I love him and that he's not to worry. It's all thanks to him that I finally reached it." I shook my head. "Reached what, Mother?" "My hill of Calvary. Your father will understand. I wish I'd met him years earlier. I wish it had always been him." I looked at her anxiously. She sounded delirious. My parents had been together for over 30 years. This did not make any sense. I presumed it to be the medication talking. Mother closed her eyes, whispering something I couldn't quite make out, that sounded like, "I can go now." I shook my head. I must have misheard her. She was telling me that I could go now. I kissed her on the cheek and whispered, "I love you. Sleep well." I put the key into my bag and returned to the house. To this day, I have no memory of leaving the hospital or getting a cab home. I joined Estelle for dinner later that evening, although we hardly ate a thing. I managed to convince her that Mother would be fine. Then I made my excuses and phoned my brother to update him on my mother's progress. Nico was pleased with our mother's prognosis, having already called the hospital to check up on her. He promised he would be on the first train out of Boston the following morning. I then phoned my father at our farm on the beautiful Sussex Downs. He seemed relieved to hear from me, although I could sense the anxiety in his voice. I explained what the doctor had said and told him not to worry and that Mother would recover. He didn't sound at all convinced, although he perked up a little when I mentioned that Nico would be travelling from Boston the following day. I asked how he was, only to hear him complain that the doctor was useless and the medication had been prescribed wasn't working. However, Father admitted he felt a little better after indulging in whiskey, honey and soda water. I laughed at his response. My father had never been a good patient. Fortunately, he was rarely ill. He had a strong constitution, far more robust than most. "Charlotte, you have no idea how good it is to hear your voice." "Please try to get some sleep," I replied. "I promise I'll call you back in the morning. Oh, I nearly forgot. Mother asked me to send you her love. She said not to worry, that you helped her reach her. A hill of Calvary, whatever that means." My father gasped. "Have you read it yet?" "No, not yet. Mother asked me to read her journal this evening." I frowned. "Wait a minute. How on earth could you possibly know?" My father paused before he answered. I could feel the tension in his voice. "Charlotte, I could do with a drink right now. I will speak to you again tomorrow. Be sure to tell your mother that I love her. I would give anything in the world to be with her right now." "I think she knows that." "Tell her anyway. I wish you a good night, Charlotte. If you need anything, call me. It doesn't matter what time. Promise you will do that." "Yes, sir, of course. I'll be sure to do so." I retired to Mother's bedroom just as she asked. I sat on her bed for a while, staring at the key, sipping from my glass of red wine. Opening the locker, I took out the journal, making myself comfortable on the four-poster bed. Opening the thick black book, which contained her memoir. I smiled at the introduction, which was dedicated to Nico and me. I began to read Mother's words from the brown-tinted pages, bearing the unmistakable patina of age. My heart stopped in my mouth as I digested her first sentence. The tears began to flow, realising with a start that Mother had only asked me to read her journal because she thought she was dying. The thought completely broke my heart. My grandparents, Alfred and Marianne, had died prematurely due to heart problems. I sat on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. I called the hospital, only to be told Mother was sleeping peacefully and there was no cause for alarm. I asked if I could come back to see her, and they said not until the following morning. Due to the lateness of the hour, they didn't want the other patients to be disturbed. Feeling reassured, I sat back down on the bed and read her journal. "Hello, my darlings, Nico and Charlotte. Well, I guess if you found this, I'm either dead or deranged. As you can see, I've kept a private journal. It was never intended for publication. But I would like you both to read it. I want you to know that any decisions your father and I made regarding the future were to protect you, our precious children. It was a tremendous privilege to be your mother. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. The other was meeting your father. I cherished every single moment I spent with you all. I send you both my heartfelt love. You are intelligent, beautiful, wonderful human beings, clever, considerate and kind. When growing up, my Nico, sagacious scholar, you were a 40-year-old trapped in a child's body, but now a responsible young man with an exceptional level of intelligence. And then my lovely Charlotte, who Luca describes as a revolver, sharp as a tack, fearless and curious. She can at times be all dramatic, much to the disdain of her long-suffering father. I laughed out loud at that. It was true that my father would go out of his way to avoid meaningless interaction. I was aware that I often drove him to distraction, especially when I was younger and demanded that he read to me. Literature, novels, and children's stories had little of no appeal to him, but he would begrudgingly read to me if I asked. Then, shaking his head, he would roll his eyes and say, "Not Alice in Wonderland again, Charlotte." Finally, he would add extra excitement to the text and always stop at a cliffhanger. My beautiful Charlotte, who is funny, sharp-witted and kind, always believe in yourself. Be anything in the world you want to be. And if I have sung my last song by the time you read this narrative, then so be it. I have seen my own mortality many times. Although I briefly crossed over to the other side, there was nothing to fear from what I could see. The sun will continue to set. Despite everything, the world will still turn, even when we are not in it. I will not lie to you. Grief is a long-lasting pain, the price we pay for loving someone. Love of the highest mark. I do not think it ever goes away entirely, but the overwhelming sadness does get easier with time. We can only hope to live on in the memories of those who loved us, and when we lose someone, we shouldn't wallow in all of that misery. Instead, we should think of all the love and beauty that person has left behind. I turned over the page and gasped at the introduction. London, 13th of February, 1893. The day that would change everything and turn my world upside down began when my husband, Godfrey Jones, was found brutally murdered. I turned over the page just as the phone began to ring. I answered it with some trepidation, thinking the worst, that it was a hospital. I was surprised to hear my father's voice instead, especially so soon after our last conversation. "Charlotte, I am sorry to disturb you at this late hour, but you deserve to know the whole truth. I too kept a record of our time together, your mother and me. When you feel ready, I want you to go to my study and open the safe. The code is your mother's date of birth. My chronicles are all in there. I wish I could be with you to explain everything. But before you read our narratives, there is something I need to tell you." He paused for a moment. "I am not who you think I am." "Whatever do you mean?" I cried. "My name is Sherlock Holmes. You may have heard of me."
Thank you very much. That was brilliant. So the plot for Song for Someone, I think you've already touched on, seemed to sort of exist within the framework of the existing canon of Sherlock Holmes. So again, you've already touched upon this, but let's just get a bit more depth. So how important was it to you to make sure that you got that aspect right? And did you do any additional research beyond the Sherlock Holmes stories to prepare for writing Song for Someone? So not just about the Sherlock Holmes
Yes, I
themselves.
did.
Well, yeah.
But staying as close to the canon was important to me as a writer, and imperative, I think, to the stories, because I wanted to give the main characters from the canon as much the respect they deserve, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy sometimes interacting the relationships between them and Adler. It was quite tricky at times, but the historical research that went into it as well was full on. But I really enjoyed interacting the historical characters with the real life ones.
Yeah.
For instance, when Holmes and Adler meet at La Scala in March 1895, during the premiere of Mascagni's opera Silvano. That opera actually did take place at the Great House during that time. And I have Adler and Holmes meeting in the green room. And then you've got all these other fascinating characters, Rodolfo, Mascagni, Toscanini, chatting to Holmes, Dr. Watson, Irene Adler. I'm very proud of those scenes. I just wish I'd had my friend Tony helping me more at the time, but it took me quite a while to do all of that. So, I'm pretty proud of that. So it was just an amazing experience to be able to do that and put it all down on paper and watch them all come to life.
Yeah, that's what I've said to people when I was reading the book. That's what I really liked about the book, was that it was working within the existing canon, and it was like another layer to the established stories.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about it. And you did feel like both characters go on a journey within the book, and it wasn't just a quick, like, because romance is not necessarily my genre, but it's not a romance novel necessarily, because it's very much a character study, and it's very character development and character journey, and I really loved that.
Yeah,
going from that initial point.
It wasn't just about a romance, was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't like I saw each other going like, oh, for each other now, each other's arms, and like, and like the music's going, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? I really like the fact that there was a bit of conflict, it was drama, and they had to danger, and obviously the other stuff's going on around the story. And then obviously I love the fact that at the end it sort of explains a little bit why she's not necessarily in the other stories as well. And I just love the fact that it works with what's already there, and you're not trying to sort of, you don't ignore that canon. And I think, fans of Sherlock Holmes definitely would really like this book. And that's the main thing that I really liked about it, was you definitely got the sense that it was just adding, like I say, an extra layer to the established canon. So it's a different aspect, like you said, like you were waiting for, that you never actually got. So I think that's one thing I really enjoyed about it.
Thank you very much. That was what I was trying to do as a writer, and I'm glad people think that way. It's very rewarding as a writer to hear that. So yeah, it was quite a challenge at times, but I think worthwhile in the end. So
yeah. Definitely paid off. Definitely, yeah. So why did you choose to write mysteries, and why do you think that readers still enjoy mysteries as much as they do today? I mean, it's quite a genre that sort of started, was a golden age of the 1930s, wasn't it? So I mean, why do you think people still enjoy it?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of the mystery writers. Christie, Doyle were amongst my favourites, as I've mentioned. And I think people like a good whodunit, don't they?
Yeah.
That's universal. I don't think that's really changed in years. They like to get into the premise of the story, try and discover who the perpetrator is, what the motive is, why they've carried out this crime, see if they can get it right. I mean, I love doing that when I'm watching a drama. I never get it right, by the way. And I don't think that's changed at all. So I think it's universal. I don't think that will ever change. And if you like a good mystery, some great writers out there, aren't there? So
people do expect you as a mystery writer to be able to solve every single mystery that you see on TV or every mystery you read. I know I write mysteries, but I can't. No, I'm not.
My husband's amazing at it. He nearly always gets it right, and I'm saying, no, that can't be right. But I'll keep trying. But I love the the series like Morse. I used to enjoy that on TV with the amazing John Ford, and the Poirot and Miss Marple mysteries, anything like that. I'm a sucker for. So.
Yeah, Jill and Pascoe, Taggart, those other ones that I grew up with. Yeah, all those people. Yeah.
My favourite at the moment is the new Dalgleish with Bertie Carvel. I think that's just amazing. He's wonderful as Dalgleish, and I think he'd make a really good Sherlock Holmes. Having him in mind when I'm writing my latest books.
It's funny, you always have like people in your mind, don't you? If you have a TV show, who would play this? And you sort of secretly imagine them as you're writing the stories.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you all see, your book's about Sherlock Holmes. I think we are now going to do a quiz.
Oh God, I've been trying this bit, right?
Brace yourself. This is obviously just a bit of fun, There's just it'd be interesting to see how many people actually get this right as well. So some of these are multiple choice, and we'll just go through them basically. Yeah. So I hope it starts off quite easy. So who is Sherlock Holmes's landlady?
Oh, it's Mrs. Martha Hudson.
Yes. see,
I love Mrs. Hudson. She appears in Christmas at the Saporis, by the way. Just to mention that.
Yeah, I love there was a conversation, isn't there, in Song for Someone between Holmes and Mrs. Hudson. I love that conversation. I'm not going to go into too much detail, I don't want to spoil anything, but I love that sort of interaction.
Yeah, I love writing it. Yeah.
The strong woman in the background, So question 2, so that's a 1 point for question 1. So who are the Baker Street irregulars?
Well, they're a band of children, aren't they, who Holmes employs to look into different facts and things. They do a lot of running around for him, and he pays them to come to his flat with information.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I've got street urchins, but it's the same thing. Yeah, so
street urchins. Yes. Something for the word. Yes. Yeah.
Take question 3. Where did Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson first meet?
Oh gosh. Was it a hospital?
It was a hospital, yeah.
Was it St. Bart's or something?
Yes.
Was that it? I was just trying to think now. So
it was St. Bartholomew's, yeah.
Yeah, to cast your mind back from the mists of time. That's all. Told you my memory is not great. So.
Oh no, you're doing brilliant so far.
Oh, okay.
I would never have got that. I would have known it was a hospital. I would have been like. This next one is a multiple choice answer. Mm-hmm. So, what is the name of Dr. Watson's acquaintance who introduces him to Sherlock Holmes? Is it A. Stanley, B. Mumford, or C. Stamford?
Is it Mumford?
No, it's Stamford.
Stamford, that's I think it was something Ford, I can't remember.
Yeah, so I mean, I had a little bit of a trick question there.
Oh, no.
The next one, again, is a multiple choice. So, where did Sherlock Holmes keep his tobacco? Is it A, in the toe of a Persian slipper, B, in his violin case, or C, in a tobacco tin?
Oh, it was in his Persian slipper.
Yes, it was.
Mentioned in Song for Someone, yes.
Yes.
Strange place to put his tobacco, isn't it? But, well, you know.
Well, yeah, you would have thought that he might have put his other vices, so shall we say, in there. But yeah, I suppose, you know.
God knows what was in there, yeah.
Because he's done a study of different types of tobacco, hasn't he, or something? He keeps saying about in the stories about his. I can't remember how many types of tobacco he's done a paper on or something. Yeah. So in the story, what is the speckled band? Is it A, a belt, B, a Bellman's steak, or C, a tie?
Oh, it's a venomous snake.
Yes. These aren't too bad.
A very popular story, though, wasn't it? This speckled band.
Yeah, I remember I was at a school, I was doing GCSE, we did Sherlock Holmes, and we had to sort of do a storyboard, and I picked a scene from that story and did a storyboard. And yeah, I really liked that story. It's one of my favourites.
The critics pulled it to pieces because they said the snake in question would be deaf, so it wouldn't respond to the music, and snakes don't drink milk.
Yeah.
But when this got mentioned to Doyle, he just said, well, I don't really care. So
he's like, yeah, it's fiction at the end of the day, yeah.
That must be wonderful to be able to say, yeah, I'm not really bothered, you know. So
but the days before Google, though, he couldn't have, his readers couldn't be like, quick, hey Siri, what's this? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, would you accept it at face value, don't they?
No, people didn't care either, they just loved the book, didn't they? So yeah.
So next question, what is the name of Sherlock Holmes's brother?
Oh, the wonderful Mycroft Holmes. Very difficult to write. Oh, yeah. A wonderful character, isn't he? So.
I just always now think of Mark Gatiss now. Whenever I hear the name Mycroft, because he plays Mycroft in the Benedict Cumberbatch series, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, but there's been loads, hasn't there? I like Robert Bawley in some of the original films. He was very good. And I sort of pictured him when I was writing Song, this big, kind of corpulent man, with this big personality. So, yeah.
Okay, so right, I'll be very surprised if you might get this one, you might not do. So I mean, I didn't know this until I found out. So, according to some, Professor Moriarty was largely inspired by which real-life German-American criminal mastermind?
Sorry, can you just run that by me again?
So, according to some people, Professor Moriarty was largely inspired by which real-life German-American criminal mastermind?
Oh, I have read this somewhere and I can't remember. No, sorry, not going to cover it.
Adam Worth.
Oh, right, okay, rings a bell. But,
yeah. I only found that out because I was on my belly, because I obviously do searches for my trivia of the day, so I have got the book actually.
It's a great question, that, isn't it?
I've got the book about his life, so that is on my to-read list.
Right,
so,
okay.
Yeah, he was sort of called the Napoleon of crime. Yeah, so
Napoleon of crime. Yes, yeah.
So the iconic phrase "Elementary, my dear Watson" appears in how many of the original stories?
None.
Yes.
It was. I was just talking about this to someone, I think, the other day, and it was never actually used. It was used in a couple of the films, wasn't it? But with Rathbone, but not in the book.
Yeah. The last question you'll be pleased to hear. Sherlock Holmes only ever admired one woman. Who was that?
Oh, well, this is a tricky one for me. Irene Adler, of course.
Yes. I'm sure you got that one wrong. I'm like, okay.
Oh, dear me. Yeah.
So you've done very well. So I'll tell you, and we just count it up. So 1, 2, 3. Doing it. 1, 2, 3. It should be. Oh wait, I didn't put that one there. Yeah. So I think I'm not very good at maths, as you can tell.
Neither am I.
So I think it's 8. Yeah, you got 8 out of 10.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too shabby. Oh,
yeah, you can hold your head high still.
Right, better than I thought.
Yeah. So you sort of touched upon on screen sort of Sherlock Holmes is. So who is your favourite on screen Sherlock Holmes and why?
Well, there've been so many wonderful portrayals, haven't there? This celebrated detective over the years. But for me, it's got to be Basil Rathbone, I think.
Yeah.
Not only was he a distinguished actor, he just had that quintessential Englishness about him, which I think was so endearing. And I remember watching the black and white movie The Hound of the Baskervilles when I was a kid, and hiding behind the settee as my idols, Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson stepped into the Great Grimpen Moor. And I was terrified something awful was going to happen to them. And I've been hooked ever since. Never would thinking in my wildest dreams then as precocious 10, 11-year-old that one day I'd actually write a follow-up to The Hound of the Baskervilles. How mad is that? So,
yeah, how weird how life comes in full circle. Yeah, because when growing up I was sort of watched mainly the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, it's amazing.
But then I went back and watched some of the Basil Rathbone films. I really enjoyed them as well, though. So
yeah. Well, I think Peter Cushing was very good as well, and Jeremy Brett's got a massive following.
Yeah,
I think there's about 20 groups alone on Facebook dedicated to Jeremy. But it was very good, and you can't believe that's 1990s. It's 30 years ago that was on telly. It seems much. Yes, it does. Yeah. I still watch an odd one. Maybe they put them on gold, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I've got the box there. The one that I need to watch. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting when I was in my stories are set in the 1890s. People go, "Oh, Sherlock Holmes." And I'm like, well, in my universe, Sherlock Holmes is still a fictional character. But yeah, it's amazing how even now it's still an enduring character. And so obviously, I don't think people might not know, but now to capture Sherlock Holmes himself is now in the public domain. But there might be other people sort of watching this who are thinking of including like another established character in their own writing. So what advice would you give to them in terms of their thinking of doing that?
Well, I advise them to do the research and check all the details. For example, if the copyright expiration date for that character has expired, and if it has, then they're in the public domain. And obviously it's okay to write about them, but you've got to be careful if it's a real life character.
Yeah.
For instance, in Song for Someone, during the conversation with Agatha Christie and Irene, I wanted to introduce Agatha Christie's daughter into the conversation, but then I realised I couldn't because she's still alive. So you've got to be careful with that. The only way you could get around that is to ask for permission, which I thought I'm not going to, for the sake of a small conversation, I just cut it out.
Yeah.
So you just got to be careful with that. But other than that, if you do your research, then you should be fine.
Yeah. And would you say sort of you need to sort of decide as a writer sort of how because the thing is, some people do make a decision of how like authentic they're going to make that character and how close to the original character they're going to do. Or some people might decide to do a completely different sort of angle. But I suppose even if you decide to do a different angle, you still need to have that research to have the basis to start from.
Definitely, really? Definitely. Yeah. I wanted to get my Holmes, for example, as close as I could. So I reread the canon again, all of it, Scandal and Bohemia 2 or 3 times before I even started work on that, just to get all the, the characters, the traits that it has, and there's a lot of them. So it's pretty tricky, but it's you've got to do your research to get it across and be plausible to the reader, really.
Yeah, I definitely felt like that your Sherlock Holmes is authentic to the original Sherlock Holmes. Definitely, that's why the journey itself it was so important. It's that, particularly for him as well, and sort of the, delving into under the surface with him. Again, it's like I really enjoyed. Yeah, so well, thank you very much. We've already reached the end of our conversation.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been great. Yes, we are great to chat with you today. And do you want to remind people where they can buy your book and where they can follow you and that sort of thing?
Well, I usually hang out on Facebook, where I'm there most of the time when I should be writing. Or you can find me on Instagram and X, all author. I'm there as well.
Are you KD Sherrinford on those?
I am. I'm KD Sherrinford. Yes.
Yeah.
My books are widely available. If you go onto mybook.to /KD Sherrinford, the series will come up, or you just Google my name into the search bar, KD Sherrinford, and the link should come up, the Amazon link, and the Pretty White, Barnes and Noble, the usual.
Yeah.
The usual suspect.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.